Imagine walking into a living room in the 1960s. A wooden record player sits in the corner. Next to it is a shelf filled with large square album covers. Someone carefully removes a vinyl record from its sleeve. They place it on the turntable. The needle slowly drops, and suddenly the room fills with music, a warm, slightly crackling sound that feels alive. For decades, vinyl records were the way people listened to music. Millions of homes had record players. Entire music stores were filled wall-to-wall with albums. But by the early 2000s, vinyl records had almost completely disappeared. Most record stores closed, turntables gathered dust, and music moved into the digital world. So what happened? Why did vinyl records almost vanish from everyday life? I make videos about nostalgic pieces of culture, the things that used to be everywhere, but slowly faded away. Old technology, lost traditions, and everyday experiences people remember from the past. Some of these things disappeared because of new inventions. Others disappeared because people's habits changed. But every one of them tells a story about how life evolved. And today we're looking at one of the most iconic pieces of music history, the vinyl record. For most of the 20th century, vinyl records were the main way people listened to music. If you wanted to hear your favorite song, you usually had to own the record. Radio could play songs, but records allowed you to listen whenever you wanted. By the 1950s and 1960s, record players had become common household items. Families gathered around them in living rooms. Teenagers played their favorite albums in their bedrooms. And music lovers carefully built large collections of records. Vinyl records were also a huge part of music culture. Album covers became works of art. Artists spent time designing covers that fans would proudly display. Some people even bought records just because the artwork looked interesting. Music stores became gathering places. People spent hours flipping through rows of albums, searching for new music. By the 1970s, vinyl records were everywhere. They dominated the music industry. But that success wouldn't last forever. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, new ways of listening to music started to appear. One of the first major competitors to vinyl was the cassette tape. Cassette tapes were smaller and easier to carry. Unlike records, they didn't require careful handling. You could play them in portable players or in your car. For the first time, people could take their music with them wherever they went. Another major advantage was the ability to record. People could record songs from the radio or make mixtapes for friends. This flexibility made cassette tapes very popular. While vinyl records were still widely used, cassette tapes slowly began taking market share. Music listening was starting to change. The biggest change came in the 1980s with the arrival of the compact disc. Compact discs, or CDs, were introduced as a new digital format for music. Compared to vinyl records, CDs had several advantages. They were smaller, they were easier to store, they didn't scratch as easily, and they offered very clear sound without the crackling noises that vinyl sometimes had. For many people, CDs felt like the future. Music companies quickly adopted the new format. Record stores began replacing vinyl sections with CD shelves. Consumers also started switching quickly. Many people even replaced their entire music collections with CDs. Albums they already owned on vinyl were purchased again in CD form. By the early 1990s, vinyl records were rapidly disappearing from store shelves. Music had officially moved into the digital age. Just when CDs seemed to dominate the music world, another major change arrived: digital music files. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, the internet transformed how people listened to music. Songs could now be downloaded and stored on computers. Portable digital players allowed people to carry thousands of songs in their pockets. Instead of owning physical albums, people could simply download individual tracks. Later, streaming services made music even more accessible. Listeners could play almost any song instantly. There was no need to visit a store, no need to store albums on shelves. Music had become completely digital. Compared to this convenience, vinyl records seemed outdated, large, fragile, and inconvenient. By the early 2000s, vinyl sales had dropped to extremely low levels. Many people believed vinyl records would disappear forever. As vinyl sales dropped, record stores began struggling. For decades, these stores had been the center of music culture. People gathered there to discover new artists. Employees recommended albums. Fans discussed music with other customers. But as CDs replaced vinyl, many smaller record stores closed. Then digital music made the situation even worse. Online downloads and streaming reduced the need for physical music stores. One by one, independent record shops shut their doors. Entire shelves of vinyl records were sold off or thrown away. For a while, it seemed like the era of records had truly ended. Another major reason vinyl records disappeared was simple convenience. Vinyl required time and attention. You had to carefully remove the record from its sleeve, place it on the turntable, lower the needle, and after about 20 minutes, you had to flip the record over to hear the other side. For music lovers, this process was part of the experience. But for many people, it felt like work. New formats made listening to music much easier. Cassette tapes allowed people to play music while driving. CD players could skip directly to any song. And digital music made things even simpler. With an MP3 player or a phone, thousands of songs could be carried in your pocket. There was no need to store shelves of albums, no need to flip records, no need to handle delicate vinyl. People could simply press play and instantly hear whatever song they wanted. Convenience began to matter more than the listening experience. Music became something people consumed quickly while doing other things: driving, working, exercising. Because of this shift, the slower and more deliberate experience of vinyl records faded from everyday life. For a while, it seemed like vinyl belonged to the past. But as we'll see, the story didn't quite end there. But something unexpected happened. Even though vinyl nearly vanished, it never completely died. In fact, over the past decade, vinyl records have made a surprising comeback. Many music fans began rediscovering the unique experience of playing a record. Unlike digital music, vinyl requires a physical interaction. You remove the record from the sleeve, place it on the turntable, and carefully lower the needle. The process feels slower and more intentional. Many listeners also love the warm sound of vinyl. The slight crackles and imperfections make the music feel more alive. For younger listeners who grew up with digital music, vinyl feels new and special. Record stores have even started returning in some cities. Today, vinyl sales are stronger than they've been in decades. It may never dominate the music industry again, but vinyl records have found a new life. If you enjoy nostalgic stories like this, about the things that used to be everywhere but slowly disappeared, make sure to subscribe. This channel explores forgotten pieces of everyday life and the history behind them. And if you ever own vinyl records, let me know in the comments. What was the first album you ever played? And do you still listen to vinyl today? Because sometimes, the old ways of doing things never truly disappear.